Thank y'all for tapping in with Mr. Dig. I hope all is good with everybody. Hope everybody's having a really good weekend and in their prospective places and enjoying their days off. And if you do have to work today, I hope that you have a good day. Listen, I'm gonna be putting some commentary together today for you, and I'm gonna be kind of working behind the scenes to try to come up with some new things to be adding to my channel. So I ask that you be patient with me in hopes that you do enjoy the commentary that I have already made available. But in the meantime, in between time, I ask that you stay tapped in with Mr. Your Dig, and y'all have a good weekend. And you hear? Be safe out there.
Society as it relates to relationships. I hope that makes sense. So basically, they're talking about there's a male identity crisis with when it comes to relationships, how men are coping with the state of that dynamic. When it comes to women being, working and women being more modern and more masculine and women in their minds kind of taking over and being the bosses, these boss chicks that they made up and them actually essentially controlling the household. So basically, this is going to kind of speak to the fact of how this may affect young men growing up in the society and how men are coping with this narrative that seems to be different. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I thought this was interesting and I wanted to share. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Make sure as you come in, you hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button, and definitely chime in the chat and give me your thoughts on this as well. So we're going to jump right into it, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video and I'm going to kind of go back and forth with it. And y'all definitely let me know what you think. Shout out OMG Entertainer, Alex. What's going on, Alex? Justina, how are you? Anthony, Kelly, Ryan Wedlow, Jeffrey Woodland, Successful MD, what's going on? Jameson Wagner, and everybody else in the chat and everybody else watching. Thank you so much for being here. So let's jump right in, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up, and then I'm going to share my screen in a minute.
We first talked about this months ago here on CNN. You actually thanked me for my willingness to discuss such a, you said, controversial subject. So now I'm wondering whether Christine's coverage and the enormous reaction means that the nation is ready to have this dialogue.
This is a masterclass in how powerful journalism is. There's a lot of us out there and a lot of mothers and a lot of young men themselves and people such as yourself who have felt something and have been talking about it. And Richard Reeves really moved the ball forward with his landmark book of Boys and Men. But this one article, this sort of tour de force, has inspired more dialogue and emails and real serious conversation than anything that I've been exposed to over the last year. So Christine and her good work speaks for itself. And let me just say, over the last couple of years, the conversation has gone from one that immediately inspires a gag reflex, where people sort of see compassion as a zero-sum game and feel that if you're advocating for men, somehow that's misogynistic or not recognizing the immense obstacles that non-whites and women still face, to something much more positive. And also, we're beginning to crowd out the terrible, quite frankly, unproductive voices that filled this void that was created because people felt the problem and were talking about it, but no one was addressing it. And then some terrible voices entered this void. And Christine's work, and I think other work, is starting to crowd out some of those thinly veiled misogynistic voices and have a more productive conversation. A long way of saying I agree with you, Michael, and Christine's done us all a real service.
So I think what he's referring to is what I kind of mentioned in the beginning, the state of relations between women and men, how women have kind of taken control of, they feel that they've taken control of their destiny, I guess you could say, and they believe and feel that they don't need men and that they're leading the pack, and that they want a man, but they don't need him. And then also, excuse me, the bashing that comes along with it, like he mentioned, the misogyny that comes with this is not just that women are able to work and take care of themselves, but there's also this other dynamic that's like right there with the idea that they can take care of themselves, that they feel they finally don't need a man. They believe that they want one, but they don't need them because they're able to work and take care of themselves, pay their own bills, even though they still want traditional men to come in and do the traditional role and pay all the bills. Um, it's almost like an option for them. If you don't want to do it, I can do it myself, and I can do it well. And so it comes with that comes a certain mentality, a certain mindset, a certain entitlement. And this is where what follows that is what I would always talk about, the unrealistic expectations that they set for men, which there are a lot of men, young men coming up, who see this and they're almost traumatized by it, in a sense. And I want y'all can let me know what you think, but looking at the state of where women are and what their expectations are, a lot of young men don't believe that they can provide the expectation that these women are looking for, or that they measure up, and they're finding it very difficult to do so. And this is probably young men who are looking around saying, "Hey, I don't even make nowhere near six figures. You know, I have a little job at the department store, and I don't feel that I will be able to have a successful relationship with a woman with the expectations that come with them." And so I think this is why they're saying a male identity crisis, or men are having a hard time getting women in relationships because of the standards of a lot of these women. So we're going to talk about it some more, but let's continue.
Christine, what drew you to the subject matter, and speak to the enormity of the reaction?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Scott, for your kind words. I'll speak to the enormity of the reaction first. I have been overwhelmed by how quickly the piece has taken off, and how many people it feels like people were sort of waiting for someone to finally say it, so that they could begin to have the conversation that they had been worried about for months, for years. As Scott was saying, people are worried about their sons, their brothers, in some cases their husbands. I get a good amount of email, but I've never gotten this much email from a single piece before.
Hold on one second. I want to pause this. I want to acknowledge Anton. What's going on, Anton? Anton in the building, y'all. Shout out to you. What's going on? Hey, glad to see you in here. Hope all is well with you and your family, Anton. I appreciate you for being here, for stopping by. Thank you so much, sir. Take care. Love. I love your work. Love your podcast channel, all of it. Blessings to you and your family. Definitely shout out to you. Thank you for being here, Anton. I appreciate you. Let's continue, y'all.
And we run our comments section usually for 3 days, and the comments were shut down early because there were 10,500 comments on this one piece, which I cannot think of another article that's had that sort of response. So it really does feel like people are experiencing this in their lives. They're seeing their male friends and loved ones struggle, look for direction and not know where to find it. And I'll say that I started thinking about this piece. Actually, you mentioned my book, Rethinking Sex. That book was sort of an investigation of sexual and relationship culture after Me Too, trying to figure out whether sort of our changes in norms had worked for us, if they had delivered what they promised. And I talked to a lot of young women for that book, but I also spoke to young men too. And it was from them that I found the most curious and saddening response. So many of them just seemed totally confused. The sands had shifted beneath them, as Scott lays out frequently. The economy has shifted in a way that doesn't necessarily favor manual labor skills where men used to dominate. Women are succeeding more in college and elsewhere, which, to be clear, is a great thing.
Now, this is where I want you guys to chime in, because we hear that a lot. We hear women constantly say that women are succeeding in college, and this notion that women are just doing so exponentially better than men. But a lot of men push back on that because most men or most people realize that women are the most enrolled. It doesn't mean that, and they count the fact that they are the most with the college degrees, but does that necessarily translate to more money? And I think we've had people on here who've have pulled up statistics that have shown that that is actually not the case. That I think the average woman makes about 40 something thousand a year, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what they've been pulling up, and we've seen these stats over and over and over. So I think the idea of equating women who are enrolled in college versus the amount of money that women are actually making, it's a big difference there. And I think they use that as a way to kind of prove or try to prove that women are so much more advanced than men, because men aren't enrolled in college as much as women are. So that's something we're going to talk about, and I definitely want to get y'all thoughts on it. And I thought this was interesting once again because they're speaking to the men and how men are coping in this environment of women kind of doing their own thing, and the fact once again that women are saying, hey, we don't need men, we can do it on our own, we making our money. And there are women out here making their money, and they make good money. I'm not negating the fact that there aren't women out here who are successful and making good money, but a lot of them aren't making the money that they're claiming. There are a lot of women who are on government assistance, and they're not making all these six figures that they're claiming to make. And this is why I personally believe, in my own opinion, that a lot of these women, that's why they're looking for men who make that money, because they really don't. A lot of these women are struggling. And of course, I always have to say not all, because there are people way in the back who always like to say, oh, well, not all. No, we know it's not all, but a lot of these women aren't making the money that they claim to make. And so I think they're all trying to hide behind the fact that there are some successful women. And so you just want to put all women in that category as if they're all successful, and the men are just so broken and poor, and they don't have two legs to stand on. I just don't believe that it's completely that way now. But it is interesting to me, the fact that, of course, you would have men in this climate who are having a hard time figuring this out. I have young sons who, have to figure this out. And if they're they're young, but they want to look for a woman. And this woman is approaching them with, hey, you need to make six figures. And they're like, wait, whoa, hold up. I'm not there yet. So how is that going to affect them, and all of that. And I think that's what is the concern for a lot of people, is how are their sons going to be able to find, legitimate, decent women who are not a part of this modern society, this modern idea of I want a man, but I don't need a man. But and the one that I want, he has to be 6 feet tall, 6-pack abs, six figures, all the sixes and more. And how is that going to look for the future of our kids and beyond? You know what I'm saying? So let's continue.
But young men didn't know what they were supposed to be doing, or almost what they were for. Should I talk to women? Maybe I shouldn't talk to women anymore because that's seen as toxic somehow. So instead, they were just retreating. They were, staying in their rooms. They were, instead of trying to ask a real person out on a date, they were watching porn to feel like they were, getting their power back. They would begin to look up to these figures like, Andrew Tate, for instance, or Jordan Peterson. And they just
Scott,
didn't know what to do.
Scott, a part of this that you've addressed is the lack of sex, right? These guys are not having the type of relationships that young men of a different era would be having.
Look, we don't like to talk about it. We hear the word sex and our brain fires a bunch of different places. But think of, the whole shooting match, the whole reason we have an economy, the whole reason we're focused on creating a more prosperous, secure nation is such that we can all recognize what is the key to a rewarding life. And that is a series of deep, meaningful relationships. And core to that, or anchor to that, and I'm not saying you have to have this to be happy, is a productive, loving relationship with a partner. And you can look at the most unstable, violent societies in the world, and they all have one thing in common. They all have a disproportionate amount of young men who have no economic opportunity, and also have no opportunity for relationships. And if we're going to have an honest conversation, we need to have an honest conversation. Sex and companionship are huge motivators and guardrails for young men. They put on a shirt, they blow dry their hair, they get their act together, they get a job. So the attributes, the peanut butter and chocolate of behaviors between masculinity and femininity make for a better world. And again, that's not to say that people along the middle of that continuum don't deserve the same respect and the same dignity. But most households prosper when there are risk aggressive, rambunctious, more prone to action attributes of masculinity in concert with more thoughtful and more loving femininity.
Now, I will say to that point, I think I agree, and basically what he's saying is you need the masculine man and you need the feminine woman. You can't have a woman who's in the household who's trying to be the man. So I agree with him on that point. Yeah, you have to have the balance. You have the balance of the masculine man and the feminine woman. And I think a lot of the problems that we're facing in this modern society is women, because they can work, because they can get an education, because they become these boss chicks that they like to flaunt around, they become masculine in their behavior. They become the man in a lot of cases. They feel like, hey, I'm doing the job of the man. I'm controlling the household. I'm doing what I want to do. And then what they need for any relationship to work the way in that dynamic, that means you would have to have a more feminine man, a man who's willing to follow this woman, who's really the leader, where she's controlling the narrative. She's telling him everything she wants done, and he's just following behind her like a lackey dog. I think that's the only way that would work, if you have men who are willing to do that. And that's where you have the masculine woman and the feminine man, where what a lot of people would call a simp, somebody who's just there, to do whatever she wants him to do. And she just does it, he just does it. And she's controlling the whole situation. I think if there's a woman who is in her masculine and who feel like she's dominating everything, to me, the way that'll work is her getting a man who's going to follow, a man who's okay with not leading his household. And the thing about that, women say they want leaders, but they really don't, in my opinion. But you'll get a man like that, because any strong masculine man who's on his purpose, who knows his value and knows his worth, and is not going to tolerate that, she's not going to be able to deal with him. She's not going to be able to deal with him. That's why they leave these relationships, because you might be able to deal with it for a little bit, but then it gets real rough and tough, because especially if you work or you feel like you contributing a lot to the household or the relationship, you're not going to be able to deal with a strong masculine man who knows what he's doing and controlling. You're not going to be able to do that. And this is why they leave. And they leave under the idea of, oh, he was so controlling, he was this, he was a narcissist. No, you just don't like, you don't want a man who's strong and stand on his morals and values, and not going to let you just talk to him any kind of way, treat him any kind of way, move the way you want to, and he just stand idly by and let you do it. No, those types of men are not going to deal with that. And this is why women can't handle it. And women are proving day after day that they can't handle a strong man. Oh, what do they say? They start saying that he's not sassy in this regard, but they'll say things like, oh, he would try to put me in my place. Don't let a man so a man who's confident about himself, and he's not going to let you do anything you want with him or to him, or say anything or disrespect him. Oh, you don't like him because you feel intimidated. Basically what it is, you feel intimidated by him, and I feel like he's going to try to put me in my place. No, well, maybe he need to put you in your place. See, that's the thing. A lot of these women aren't used to strong masculine men. They say they want men to lead, and they want those type of men, but when they come across those types of men, they're the ones who feel intimidated by them, and they don't know what to do with them. That's what I've seen, and that's how I feel about it. That might not be everybody, once again, but a lot of them are intimidated by the very same thing that they say they want. And so that's where the dilemma comes in. You get what you said. If you can get what you said you wanted, you leave him, because you can't deal with it. You can't deal with who he really is and what he comes with. And it's not that he's controlling. It's not that he's a narcissist. It's not that he's, disrespectful or treating you bad. He's a strong-minded man, and he knows his worth, and he knows what he wants. And you're going to have to get on his program. And if you don't want to do that, that's why a lot of women leave the relationship. So I think there is of course, there's a major divide when it comes to women and men, and relationships are suffering because of it. And so I think this is interesting, because it kind of points to the male dynamic, and try to, to talk about or discuss how men are coping and dealing with this.